Hi, I'm Dr. Lyndon Walker. The following video is part of my SkillShare course, Getting Started with R. Here behind me you can see the various different chapters of the SkillShare course. You can click on the link below the video to take you to the SkillShare course, and you'll be able to download the data that I use in this video and work along with it. In this section we will look at how to import a data set into R. We will look at it using the menus in RStudio, but we'll also look at it using some code. This will also be our first introduction to functions, which is the main way that we run our code in R. The data that we're using is from the Australian Institute of Sport, and we have a link here where we can have a look at the variables in the data. So here is our set of variables. We can see that it's taken from 102 male and 100 female athletes, the Australian Institute of Sport. It's not the newest of data sets, but it does give us a nice mix of categorical and numeric data. And for those of you that are interested in sports science, there might be things you want to look at beyond what we do in this course. So nice little teaching data set, real world data, and some interesting relationships between some of the variables. So in RStudio we have opened up our coursecode.r file. This is a text file, and I've put the code that we will be looking at in there. You can download it from the SkillShare site and then open it up yourself. It should automatically open in RStudio. Or maybe on the first time you might get asked which program to use, and you'll nominate RStudio as the program to use. So we're going to start by opening some data using the menus in Wizard. So either we can go to File and import dataset, and you can see we have a number of options here. Alternatively, we can come across to the right hand side and click on the Import Dataset button. We get the identical set of options. So each of these is actually linked to some R code. You can see there's some common types there. We're going to choose text, the very top one, and then we're going to choose the ais.csv file. So CSV is comma separated variable, and then we're going to click on open. So it's going to open up a wizard for us. And most of the time this is pretty good. At the top here we can put in the name. This is the name that our data will be saved internally within R. So we're going to leave it as AIS, but we could put something else here. If we have headings, we need to make sure that yes is ticked here for heading. If we have comma separated variable, we want the comma option. And other than that, it's normally pretty good, and we can normally just hit import. And we can see it's opened up this little viewer sheet to show us our data, and on the right here we can see that it says AIS, and clicking on the down arrow we can see the different variables that it has inside of it. If we have a look down the bottom left, we can see that some code actually got run in order to do that. What we could do instead is we could actually use our own code, and here we've actually got 3 different pieces of code. Each of them is going to do the same thing, but with slightly different styles. So let's zoom in on these pieces of code, and you notice on each of the 3 lines it starts with AIS data and then an arrow which is made up of a less than sign and a dash. So this is what's called an assignment, and you'll use this all of the time in R. So AIS data is the name of the object, which is called a data frame, that we're going to be making. And the assignment, the arrow, is saying that whatever gets generated after the arrow, that's what's going to end up in that AIS data object. And so in this case, where we're importing data, AIS data is going to be the name of our data file. Very much like when we used that wizard, we named the object AIS. This time I decided to have a slightly different name for it. After the assignment arrow, we then have slightly different pieces of code. So we have read.csv and read.table. These are what are called functions. In R, a function is an instruction for R to do a particular operation. So in this case it's reading in a CSV file, and read.table is a little bit more of a generic version of the same kind of function. We can recognize a function because it will always have round brackets immediately after it. So notice with read.csv and read.table that there are round brackets immediately after it. And inside those round brackets, there is normally some additional information to tell the function what it should be doing. In our first row, we have this function actually inside a function. So file.choose is also a function. And by having that there, that will open a File Explorer window. So when we run this piece of code, it will open a File Explorer window for us to be able to find the file that we want to open. After the comma, we have header equals t, and so that's saying header equals true, and it's just telling R that the data that I'm going to import is going to have headings in it. On our second line, we have the file.choose and the header equals t. We've also got one more instruction where it is specifying that it's a CSV file. Because we're using a slightly more general read option, read.table, we need to specify that it is separated by commas. In our final row, instead of file.choose, we've specified the name of the file. Often we would need to include a path name there, but a very easy way to get around that is by having the .r file and the data file in the same folder. When we have this, then generally just putting the file name will allow R to be able to see that particular file. So for one of these lines of code, we can copy and paste it down to the bottom of the screen, to the console, but instead what we can do is we can use the Run button. So clicking the Run button will send the selected line of code down to the console. Alternatively, there are shortcut keys, so Control Enter on Windows or Command and Enter on the Mac. So our function has opened up the File Explorer, and we can pick ais.csv like we did before, and it's going to import the data for us. This time it is going to name it AIS data because that is what we put in the function that we ran. So we notice here on the right hand side we have AIS that we previously imported. Now we have AIS data, and it's going to have the identical contents because it's the same file, but we have saved it with that new name. So using functions instead of the wizard is going to be really helpful where we want to automate things. So if we have a particular workflow, then we don't always want to be having to point and click. We just want to be able to take a set of data and a set of code and run them together, and that's going to be really powerful for us to do by just using code instead of that wizard. It's also in the future, if you start using what's called markdown documents where there is R inside of documents, really important there that you can just name the file that's going to be opened and you can automate the running of it. So we've now got some data imported into R. In the upcoming sections we will look at how to do some basic manipulation and analysis and visualization with this data. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to support more academic content for Masters and PhD students who are embarking on their research journey. Also see below the video for links to our YouTube, Facebook community and SkillShare.